Hey, welcome to my channel, you beautiful people out there. My name is Kristen. I do a lot of things on my channel, just sharing things that bring me joy in life. And I love to read and I love books. And I have gotten some recommendation from following some people on BookTube and whatnot, and I don't pretend to be anywhere on that level, but I thought perhaps since this had been a particularly good month of reading for me, that if I shared some of my thoughts, that somebody else might discover something that was perfect for them or one of their loved ones. So I wanted to share some of those. Several of these are young adult books, so I don't normally read quite so many in one month, but a lot of these were very quick, easy reads. I did also have a beach trip, a vacation, so I will start with The Identicals by Elin Hilderbrand. This book was particularly good for a beach easy read. It's about two twin sisters who get separated through divorce at a younger age in their teens, one on Nantucket, one on Martha Vineyard, and it's their kind of life story of journeying through life and coming back together and family drama, and just a quick easy read. Anything by this author is going to be very enjoyable. She does a great job developing her characters and getting you invested in their lives and finding little fun things to connect to them. And I particularly like to pick up anything by her on my vacations. Two books that I did not have pictured, but I will insert a picture if I can figure out how to do that, or I'll put them at pictures of them at the end, were two young adult books that I bought as presents, but I read them myself just to make sure that they were decent books. I like to gift books very often, but I want to make sure that they are good, particularly if I'm gifting them to younger people. This particular first book was the first in a series of The Animal Healers, and this is by Lauren St. John. The first one in the series is called The White Giraffe. This is my cat, Casey. She likes to help out sometimes, and appropriate for an animal review, don't you think? So the first one was called The White Giraffe, and it's a story of a girl who loses her family tragically and goes to live with extended family and discovers this gift that she has magical connections to animals. And so each book in the series leads you through the adventures of her with a different type of animal. So this particular first one, The White Giraffe, obviously starts with that giraffe, and then the second one that has already come out is a dolphin, and it goes on and continues to develop this storyline. And I find it to be very fun and a perfect read, even for as young as second grade, just because of the themes and the nature and her age and what she's going through, and I would say all the way through middle school, 8th grade, it would be a great appropriate read. So any of those books that you find would be fantastic. The second one I read was Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library, and that is by Grabenstein. Want to make sure I get this right. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing all these names correctly, but to the best of my ability. This book, oh, by the way, the first book was recommended to me from Kiki Wolf, and I can link her channel below. And this one I got recommended from Gretchen, and we'll link her channel below. So thank you very much for your recommendations, because they were well done, and that's what I'm kind of hoping to pass on to others. So Escape from Mr. Lemoncello's Library is also kind of a series that has characters that continue in other books, but this one was outstanding with a lot of middle school humor and drama. They are a group of students who kind of have a Willy Wonka-ish contest. They love books and reading, and all the clues and game and situation all has to do with libraries and reading and historical fiction and novels, and it's just a very entertaining, quick, easy read. Even an adult could like it, but I highly recommend that one all the way definitely through middle school. So second grade through middle school would definitely appreciate that book. The next one was also technically, I found this in the young adult section, I didn't know that, the Illuminae that was recommended, I think Elsa recommended this one to me, I believe. I might be mistaken, but I'll link her channel below. This book almost became my favorite book that I've read so far this year because I just found it fascinating. And if I can show you, if you open the book, it's got these different text messages, memos, little notes attached, different artwork. It's just very, very creative in how it's put out. Oh, sorry, it's by Amie Kaufman and andJay Kristoff. Forgot to list the authors on that one yet. But they have done a very marvelous creative job of creating this world that is set way in the future in 2575, I believe is the year it starts in. And it's on a distant colony that we don't yet know, and there's mining going on and all these conflicts and interesting challenges strike up, and the characters are told mostly through teenagers, but they flip via memos and emails. You can see other people's points of views, things going on, and I was just particularly struck by the great character development and how they could tell a story even in just giving somebody a creative nickname. And all of a sudden I found myself processing and thinking about the way the book was laid out and written and how entertaining that was for me. And I do have to disclaim and say I am a huge Star Trek fan, so if you like that kind of sci-fi stuff, the time travel and the artificial intelligence kind of stuff, and wrestling with some of those questions about what does it mean and where are the moral values and interacting in some of this stuff and taking action and what's more valuable in life and those kind of things. This is a pretty good book, even for adults, although technically, again, I found it in the young adult. I think it's highly, highly recommendable for middle school through high school. They creatively put a black box over language because, you know, if there's a war going on, sometimes a little language may be appropriate, but you don't have to see it. And I find that kind of play, even that, interesting and a great choice. So this is the first in a series. There are 3 books out, I believe. All 3 are out right now. I could be mistaken on that. I know the second one is out, so I'm going to put that on my TBR, to be read list, and continue because this is really, really great. The only reason it's not my favorite is the last 50 pages or so. This is about 599 pages, and I know that because it marks it, it counts it down for you in the bottom there. But the last 50 pages felt kind of rushed and a little cliche-ish, like they were quickly wrapping up, as well as trying to sell me on the sequel. It felt like it was trying too hard to become a sequel, if that makes sense, and that was disappointing. I would have much rather just had it abruptly end and left me hanging and just kind of done a little suggestive ... or something. So that's my only critique really on that one. The next one was my one from Coffee and a Classic, The Moonstone. I immediately started reading this. I loved Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys growing up. I am obsessed with Agatha Christie. I love her Hercule Poirot and all of that, and this is kind of a predecessor. It's 150 years old this year, which is the cover art for this, and it's The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. And I actually own a couple other books by him that I have not read yet, so I'll have to go back and read some of his other literature. This was really, really enjoyable. A teenage girl inherits a mysterious piece of jewelry that has some magical, legendary stories behind it, and all these people come out to the woodwork and interact, and it winds up missing, and you're trying to figure out why and how and what's going on. And a lot of it is somewhat predictable, but it's still kind of fun. And then there's a couple parts that were like, oh, that's interesting. So it was a worthy read and not very long. It was very quick. It's like 301 pages. So not a difficult read, particularly if you want to do a classic. This one is also from my Coffee and Classic, and I'm just throwing it in there. I actually read it the last week in August, so it doesn't really count as my September reading, but I wanted to go ahead and give the review here since I was doing the other ones. My Antonia, which is old Nebraska setting, rural families, their kind of interaction. It had very beautiful character development, a lot of likable characters that I was kind of rooting for, but very slow moving. Just a descriptive way of life, communicating, but not action-packed, very drawn out. I'm not sure I would recommend it as a reading unless you were just kind of in that mood for a more slower paced kind of narrative, which sometimes I am. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, maybe, you know, a lazy fall, snowed in kind of thing, it's worthy, and I can appreciate why it's a classic literature. My last one I want to talk about, The Good Neighbor, a biography of Fred Rogers. This is by Maxwell King. It was a very well written document of his life, going through all the way from his birth and early childhood all the way until his death, his process of creating Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, his sacrifices and moves and love interests and family and everything that went along with that. And having grown up in that era and having him be part of my childhood, I really appreciated reading that perspective. He was also born and raised in Pittsburgh, where his memorial and grave sites still are, and my youth will be going to Pittsburgh on missions next summer, and so I picked this up at Costco predominantly so that I could do some background research so that we could incorporate that neighborhood and those kind of values into our mission, because honestly, when something bad goes on, even many years after the death of Fred Rogers, we still bring out his quotes, you know, where we look for the helpers. His love and his passion for people in general, especially young children, just continues to be a great example for all of us. And if you like nonfiction, if you like biographies, this is one that's worthy of picking up, even if maybe you're a little younger and you don't directly remember Fred Rogers. Very interesting character, encountered a lot of interesting people on the cutting edge of television, even when it was back in the day when it just first became color. So a lot of those things are in there for you. So I hope you enjoyed these reviews and maybe came up with something that maybe you'd like to check into further, and wish you the best in your reading and blessings on your day. Thank y'all so much.